let me ask Peter Schrager that, one of the hosts of NFL Network's Good Morning Football. Will Josh Allen make a Super Bowl in his career?
Feels like it's getting further and further away as we wake up this morning, Dan. Good morning.
Morning.
I put this out there. Dan Fouts was a Hall of Fame quarterback. Never played in a Super Bowl. Warren Moon was a Hall of Fame quarterback. Never played in a Super Bowl. I think Phillip Rivers is going to the Super Bowl, to the Hall of Fame. He never played in a Super Bowl. Sometimes that's just how it is. And you can have great seasons and you can have great careers and you can put up a lot of. But if this Bills team, with the cards that they were laid out at home against an undermanned Chiefs team that hasn't been their best, with no Joe Burrow in the landscape whatsoever, the path was there. And they're gone in the divisional round again. And the way Josh Allen plays, so physical, running so much, I don't see that in his 30s becoming an even greater part of his game. I don't see his arm strength getting better in his 30s, and I'm not sure this roster gets any better with all the free agents they have. It's a cold pill to lose in the divisional round. For Bills fans, I think it's particularly a cold pill because this was Josh Allen at his all-time best again last night, and they're not going to even make it to the championship game.
Yeah, I feel good about the Texans' future. I feel good about the Packers' future. I don't know about the Buccaneers' future. In Buffalo, they're in salary cap hell. So I don't feel great about Buffalo moving forward. I did pose this question. All right, Bill Belichick is out there on the open market. If you're Buffalo, would you entertain bringing Bill Belichick in back into the division that he knows oh so well? Would you do that?
Here's the thing. There's been no outside coaching hires made yet. So you're not so far behind the 8 ball where it's like, you know what? We got so far in the playoffs, and at this point, to hire a coach, we're going to be behind the. Belichick hasn't been hired by the Falcons. It's a conversation you can have on talk radio, and we can do it. I don't know if Buffalo sees it as Sean McDermott's right there, and this wasn't a McDermott thing. Like, gosh, if you are to make the case that they can't win with McDermott, you would say the offense was awesome last night for Buffalo. It was the defense and the special teams that let them down in the big spots. But I feel like Sean's still got that team. But just as the Cowboys are bringing back McCarthy, saying we're right there, I feel like Buffalo's going to bring back McDermott and say we're right there. Belichick, though, I didn't anticipate that question. That's a wild card. And guess what? In today's NFL, if Pagula looked at it and said, you know what? I'm not getting any younger. My quarterback's not getting any younger. I think Belichick's a better coach. I'm going to make a rash decision. I don't think anybody would say, well, no, you can't do that now. I think Buffalo fans are so upset and so starving for a victor and so starving for an opportunity to get back to that Super Bowl that anything is on the table at this point.
Can you reset the NFL head coaching job market right now with Harbaugh and Belichick meeting with Atlanta twice? By the way, nobody else has interviewed Bill Belichick.
No.
Isn't that strange? Greatest coach of all time, and nobody else has reached out yet. How surprising is that?
It's very surprising. And, Vrabel's interviewed for Vrabel went in and interviewed for the Chargers job. And when Vrabel got fired, everyone in my world was like, oh, well, the line to hire Mike Vrabel will be around the block. I think all 3 of those guys, Harbaugh, Belichick, and Vrabel, if you hire them, you are hiring a cult of personality. You are hiring, this is how it's done. This is how I do it. And this is what I'm bringing. Now, they could all say in the interviews, they're going to be flexible. And I'm cool with you having your GM and your president and all your different org chart members. And I like what we got going on here. But at the end of the day, those guys are made men. And I don't think Jim Harbaugh is leaving Michigan to take direction from a different general manager or hire a defensive coordinator, an offensive coordinator. He doesn't know. And in Belichick's case, gosh, Rich McKay is a lifer in this league, and he's been with the Falcons for years. And I don't think he's going anywhere. And Terry Fontenot was a recently hot hire from the Saints as a GM, and he's going through his 3rd year. And he came in with Arthur Smith. I don't think he's going anywhere. And I wonder if, it's a little easier if we just hire a Raheem Morris or a Giro Evero, or if Belichick's looking at it and saying, I don't want to be taking orders or having to weigh in with Rich McKay and Terry Fontenot. I'm Bill Belichick. So I always think of corporate structure and what you're bringing in when you hire these big name hires, because Harbaugh doesn't just come as Jim Harbaugh coach. Jim Harbaugh comes with the whole Jim Harbaugh machine, and you've got to kind of give him that power. fascinating that neither one of those guys have been hired. It's fascinating that Belichick interviewed twice with the Falcons.
Yeah. But also you have the Chargers situation. And you do have, the one team that has a quarterback in place. How desirable is that job, and how do you think that plays out with L.A.?
Yeah, I thought from the start that was Harbaugh's job to lose. It felt like it made a lot of sense. He's got San Diego ties, which isn't Los Angeles where they play, but when he coached at the University of San Diego, and he's got a history of, all right, if there's an urgency to win, bring me in, we'll win. Now, over the next couple of years, you might not like everything about it, and I might turn some of the people off, but we're going to win. And I feel like in that market, with a desire to be relevant, with a desire to get the most out of Justin Herbert, you bring in the quarterback whisperer, Jim Harbaugh, and you make it happen, but it hasn't happened yet. The one that's looming that I haven't heard his name mentioned and he hasn't interviewed, Pete Carroll in Southern California would be a monster needle mover. And this would be one of those where you're talking about stealing some of the market share from USC and UCLA.
I agree. I'm with you on that.
Pete wants to coach still.
Yeah.
Dude, Pete wants to coach. And I think Pete would come in with energy, and it's Orange County, it's Manhattan Beach. This is where Pete Carroll lives. And yet there's been no reports of even a conversation with Pete Carroll from the Spanos family. So Harbaugh's big splash. But Pete Carroll, you're talking about all the things you want to check off the box as far as in that market and being relevant and what he can bring. I think Pete Carroll would be an interesting one too.
He's Peter Schrager, host of NFL Network's Good Morning Football. That's Monday through Friday at 7 Eastern on NFL Network. Assistant coaches in the playoffs or coaching candidates in the playoffs, can they interview during the week?
Yeah, no, now it's kind of locked in now for the guys who are remaining. So you saw that Mike McDonald interviewed during the last week. This week it was time for a lot of those teams that were in the wild card round to interview. And the one that I love was Ben Johnson on Saturday, interviewed for 3 different teams virtually. 3 different teams before the game of his life, and then actually delivered, had an amazing game plan, and the Lions took care of business. But there's all sorts of different conversations happening right now with these guys who are still in. I think it kind of pauses for the guys who are still remaining, but all the others can interview for sure. And then you talk about coordinators, and that's a little lesser on the dial. But like, what are the Eagles going to do? What are the Patriots going to do? Who are they hiring with Gerard Mayo? All that is now happening, and there's so many conversations, and a lot of these are with search firms. So teams will hire an outside search firm, whether it be Mike Ford, who's running things in Carolina right now, or you've got your Corn Ferry and your other Jed, they've got these names, and these guys put it all together, and they work with these teams, and they're the ones talking with these coaches and saying, would you be interested? Can we set you up with a meeting? So fascinating time. But yeah, it seems like conference championship week. Like, let's dial ourselves in here.
Will an established coach Carolina?
I think they're going to go young. I think they're going to go away from the Belichick, Vrabel, Harbaugh tree. And I think it's going to be more of a younger coach that I think. Now, look, they might hire Raheem Morris today. They might hire Giro Evero today. But I think, from what I've heard, that a lot of these conversations was with David Tepper and some of these coaching candidates, what can you do with Bryce Young, and what can you get out of Bryce Young? And if that's the case, it sounds like an offensive coach. And I think they've got a great list of young offensive coaches who have interviewed with them. And whether it be Slowick, who just got exited in Houston, whether it be Ben Johnson, who didn't interview last year but has taken the meeting this year. And then you go with Dave Canales, who is kind of this wild card name, who is the Tampa Bay offensive coordinator, who no one was talking about before the season. Buccaneers got a lot out of Baker Mayfield. Maybe he's a surprise pick that they can hire in Carolina as well.
Your Super Bowl pick today is who?
The same Super Bowl pick I made in September when I did it on our show, and I have had it pinned on my Twitter. I will not abandon it because it's just, you just got to ride with the team. What's the term? You dance with the guy that took you, whatever it is.
Or the girl.
Whatever it is. Hey, whatever it is.
That's true.
I've got the Chiefs beating the 49ers in the Super Bowl.
Chiefs against the Niners in the Super Bowl.
I got the Chiefs winning.
I said this to start the show. As strange as it's going to sound, I think Patrick Mahomes is underrated.
Talk about it. I agree.
I mean, he
was awesome last night.
Well, you never ever.
He was awesome on Saturday night in the -30 against the Dolphins on Peacock. He was amazing.
Yes. But I think we get to the point where you get to a certain level and then we take you for granted. That you're a great story, and then all of a sudden we take you for granted. like Giannis with the Bucks.
Totally.
We kind of take him for granted. The Joker, we're going to take him for granted in the NBA. Like, there's certain players that you just go, yeah, oh, that's right. Yeah, he's great.
I'll say this. I think in a different era, Charles Barkley probably wins a championship, and so does Karl Malone. And guess what? Patrick Ewing probably gets a ring. Maybe Clyde Drexler too. I don't want to pull the cart before the horse and all that, because Lamar's the real deal. And Joe Burrow has beaten Mahomes. Granted, Mahomes is up 21-3 at home, and Burrow beat him. It's happened. But I think we're in an era now, and I think instead of always trying to anoint the next, maybe we should appreciate who the current is.
Well, I look at the Ravens, and everybody has looked in one direction, and that's been the quarterback. That defense, Patrick Mahomes will earn a trip to the Super Bowl if you win on the road in Buffalo and you beat Baltimore in Baltimore. There's no questions then about, every home game in the playoffs,
Hey, that Buffalo defense was down about 8 guys. They were on fumes at the end. This Ravens defense, fully healthy, awesome, and they just suffocated CJ Stroud in a way that we haven't seen all season. They are legit, and they are really well coached. He's going to earn it. All 60 minutes, he's going to earn it. But as I said on Good Morning Football Friday, when I was the only person on the network, I think, who took the Chiefs to win, I cannot pick against Patrick Mahomes, not because I picked him beforehand, but because I still believe in Patrick Mahomes. Like, in my head, I don't envision in a situation where he's going to wilt in the moment.
Before I let you go, do you think they changed the fumble out of the end zone?
Yeah, I would imagine there's real outcry. And I actually speak to a lot of defensive people who hate that there's such outcry over it. But remember Ron Rivera a couple years back when the Browns had it happen in Hollywood. I forget Hollywood, what was his name? Or 80 Hollywood Higgins fumbled it through the back of the end zone. Everyone, the same outcry this morning of like, you got to change that rule. Ron Rivera's like, everyone knows that rule. You got to protect the ball around the end zone. Like, it's the one rule that actually benefits the defense and actually isn't just but I think there's some real outcry over it, and it's just too punitive. So I would imagine it's going to be voted on, and I think there's been a real push to change that rule.
Well, I think Tony Romo even said, like, you get down there, you can't try to extend the play because you do run the risk of fumbling the ball out of the end zone. But I know we've said it for a couple of years. Usually it takes a moment in the playoffs for change to happen. And
but the Chiefs won, though, so it's not this thing. Like,
You're right. Had they lost, then we might be looking at that as, they're definitely going to change it.
And had they lost, I would have said in the morning, what the hell are you doing and giving it to McCall Hardman on the goal line? What are we doing? Guy touched the ball twice, went on the turf twice. He was cut by the Jets. What are we doing?
Well, you can't.
Just ran again.
Yeah, there's only so much you can change. You can't change how he plays. I'm right. I'm right there with you. I'm like, why are you giving him the ball?
Just give it to Pacheco.
Yes. Hey, safe travels this weekend to Baltimore. Thanks for joining us.
You're the man, dude. Thank you so much for having me on, as always.
That's Peter Schrager. He's one of the hosts of Good Morning Football, Monday through Friday at 7 a.m. Eastern on NFL Network.